maybe we should introduce it.
Oh.
Okay. You want to introduce yourself? Okay. All right. We'll introduce you. Okay. So next we have the wonderful Sydney Bluman, who will be talking about morning routines.
Hi everyone, I'm Sydney Bluman, and I decided to do my teacher research on the impact that a morning routine has on classroom culture and behavior. So a little background about the school I was in. I was placed in Untitled Chapter Jewish Day School, which is in Newton. I was in a third grade classroom in the general studies room, and we had two sections. So one section had 15 students and one section had 16 students. And we split in the Jewish Day School model that they use at Chapter. They split the day, so half of the day they spend in Judaic studies and Hebrew, and the other half of the day they spend in general studies. And so when I refer to morning routine, I'm talking about the routine that they had in the morning when they came into the classroom, and then after lunch, after we switched, that period of time I also refer to as a morning routine, but it's just kind of entering the classroom routine that we had. So my research questions were, what does a strong morning routine look like? And then what impact does a strong morning routine have on student behavior? And I got to this research because as part of our teacher certification in Massachusetts, we do something called CAP. And within the CAP, there are different standards that we have to meet and show competency in. And so the CAP standard that I focused on for this research was safe learning environment, which basically means that all of the students feel like they can be successful and have a place and belong in the classroom. And so I figured that this was really important and a part of morning routines, because as a part of a morning routine, you want the students to come in and calmly know what is expected of them and what they should be doing. And so I noticed that the opposite was happening. So students were coming into the classroom with a lot of energy. They were all amped up, kind of talking, hanging out, because they hang out at their lockers before class. And so I wanted students to come in quiet but productively. So I also wanted to create a morning routine that was predictable and had meaning, so it wasn't just, here, do this paper, do this worksheet, solve these math problems, circle grammar, problems in a paragraph. And so I wanted to create something that students felt connected to and that they wanted to do. And because the Jewish Day School schedule is so tight, because we do all of the curriculum in half of the day, I needed to make sure, after talking with my mentor teacher, that it had something to do with what we were learning. And so I had to relate the morning routine to the curriculum. So I did two drafts of my morning routine. So I first implemented this morning routine, and then based on what I noticed in the research, I modified it a little bit. So the first draft of my morning routine is that students came into the room and they put their folders into the bin next to the door. After that, they answered the question, which was on the front board, which I will show you in a minute. So they had to answer the question in a full sentence, and this really brought the curriculum to life, because they weren't just jotting down, some of the questions were like, if you could be any superhero, what would you be? And they wouldn't just be like, Batman. They had to write, I would want to be Batman. So it was just bringing more intention to the question on the board. And then they had to hang up their answer on the front board, and after that, they were asked to go to their seats and independently read. And then after reading for about 15 to 20 minutes, we had a meeting where we would go over the schedule for the day. So these are some of the questions that I had. And so this one is, what's the best part about being you? So third graders have a lot of confidence, which I love. So these are some of the answers. And I decided to connect some of the questions to the social emotional curriculum that we use at Solomon Schechter, which is second step. And then I also did some silly ones, but this is one of the more meaningful ones. And after a few weeks, I decided that every Friday, because it's a Jewish day school and we celebrate Shabbat, which is the day of rest, so every Friday I had them write something that they're grateful for. So this is one of them. Here's another one. What are you most proud of and why? So they got really excited. After the first couple times, they were just writing on one piece, and then they started doing these, and one time it went to here. There were 10 papers. It was awesome. They were getting so into it, which really made me feel like this was something that was becoming productive and positive. So after implementing my first morning routine, I noticed that the atmosphere of the classroom was much calmer. Students were coming in, the room was a little bit quieter, so they weren't talking as much, which I found to be very helpful for setting the tone of the day. Students were also excited to come into the room. I would greet them all in the hallway when they walked in, and I would hear them going, oh, did you see what the question is? What's the question today? Did you see it? I can't wait to answer it. Not true. Like, I'm not making that up. They were actually saying that. And also, it was giving them consistent time to read independently, which is something that they weren't doing in the classroom this year, and I figured that that was something that's really important. And I remember when I was in elementary school, the time that we spent independently reading really positively influenced me as a learner, and so I found that that had a lot of value. The environment was also predictable, so students knew every single day what was expected of them, and if they needed a reminder, I would quietly go remind them, or their neighbors would tell them, which gave them also like a little bit more ownership. And the ownership is also in the last point. So the students knew what to expect, and they also knew what was expected of them, so they were able to meet the high expectations that I set for them, which is another CAP standard. The high expectation that they have to, like, they knew what to do and they were in charge of that first 25 minutes of class. So after this first draft, and after I did a few observations in other classrooms and read some articles online, I decided to change my morning routine a little bit. So I added a welcoming note to the front board that was different each day, and it was either a nice message or a positive quote. And I also added cute pictures that related to the quote or to my students' interests. So as something that I was really big on and that I've always been big on is just having really positive, meaningful relationships with my students. And so I would include, like, every kid in my class loved animals, so most of the slides had animals, and they also loved dogs, which you'll see some examples in a few minutes. And then I also added soft music to the background on a playlist that I created on Spotify. That was really awesome. They really liked it. So this is just showing you, this is the first draft, and then the two things that were highlighted were the things that I added. And so, these are some examples of slides. And so, the students in my class knew that I'm obsessed with dogs, specifically poodles and golden doodles. And so these are the 3 important dogs in my life. So this one made it up on the board a few times. And then this one also, just showing they liked memes. I don't know, new 3rd graders now. So these are some examples. So they're laughing. That's how it is. I thought that they were laughing. I don't know. So the data sources that I used to conduct my research were 3 observations. I observed a classroom, a preschool classroom in New Jersey. And I also observed a kindergarten classroom in Schechter and a 2nd grade classroom in Schechter. And after those observations, I conducted interviews with the teachers, just asking them to reflect on their morning routines. And then I also gave a student survey towards the end of my research because I wanted to see how this affected them and what impact the morning routine actually had on them. And finally, I sent out a teacher survey, and 27 teachers from all around the country answered, which is awesome. I come from a long line of teachers, so all of my parents' friends and my friends, everyone is a teacher, so they all were willing to answer, which was awesome. And so I'll show you the data in a second, but I just wanted to explain to you my process of doing my research, which I've never done research before, and I was really nervous to do, but I found it really awesome how meaningful it was and how much I really enjoyed it. So I collected all of the data over a few months, and then I read through the data for the first time, and I looked for patterns that were throughout the whole thing. And then I analyzed the data again, and I was looking for new information that I learned, different patterns in the data, and possible new ideas. And then I compiled all of that, and I found specific examples to support my findings. I had 4 main findings. And then I shared the data with others, so right now I'm sharing my presentation, and I also gave a presentation at Schechter to a small group of teachers that I had a really good relationship with, and they were the ones that really helped me do my research. And so here are some of my findings. So within the teacher survey, I gave this statement: I find value in having a morning routine. And out of the 27 teachers that answered, 25 of them rated it the highest, which meant they really agreed with it. And 4 teachers said that it was positive, it just wasn't, they weren't super agreeing with it. So this is also one that since they have been a teacher, they have always had a morning routine. So you can also see that almost everyone, the scale is 5 being the highest, almost everyone has always had a morning routine in their classroom. And so these were the most popular benefits that teachers wrote. Towards the end, I asked them to reflect and write what they think really was the most like the strongest benefit to having a morning routine. And these were some of the things. So consistency, structure, predictability, these are all things that I had already been seeing. So it was really great to see that other teachers also agreed with these findings. That it helps students adjust, it decreased the behavioral problems, which I also found in my classroom, which was really helpful, because my classroom was pretty challenging with behavior. It got the students ready to learn and set to learn on track. It reduced anxiety because it was predictable. It built a community, and it was stability. So it showed them that every day the same things were expected of them, and it provided comfort, which I know based on my student survey. So my student survey findings were this. So I think the morning routine is helpful to start my day in a positive way. This was something that I was really interested in seeing how they felt. And so all of them but 3 wrote that it was at least sort of helpful, which was very positive feedback. And I knew exactly which 3 those were. So the morning routine makes me feel comfortable because I know how I would start each day. Once again, same. This one, there was a new one involved in this, but 4 students. So you can see that they also felt that this morning routine helped them feel comfortable, which is what I was perceiving. It was helping me feel more comfortable because it was all happening much quicker. And then I was just curious which part of the morning routine they liked the best. So independent reading was first, and then answering a question, and then the background music. These are my findings, which align with the teacher and student survey, as well as my own personal research in the classroom. So it provided stability and predictability. It impacted classroom management and student behavior, especially right in the morning, positively. So for the first hour, they were really focused and really ready to go, which was really awesome to see. Most teachers found value in having a morning routine, which was evident through my teacher survey and also my interviews and observations. And finally, the morning routines make the students feel more comfortable, which again has been something throughout my entire research. Oh, wait. I pressed the wrong button. There you go. Sorry. We're back. So now I have new questions. So what other elements could I add to my morning routine to make it even more effective? In what ways does having a strong morning routine directly impact classroom behavior in terms of call-outs and disruptive behavior? So I wanted to do quantitative data next and find the numbers to support my theory because this is qualitative, since there weren't so many numbers involved as much as just findings and important details. And so, finally, this is the impact that this research has had. So on myself, I've learned about myself that I need structure and routine, and that it's been really positive and helpful. And I also learned how to conduct teacher research. And I think the biggest piece of that is that I learned that teacher research is something that all teachers should be engaging in because it helps us be reflective, which is another CAP standard. And then on my community, I shared my research with other teachers, so I helped them think of new ideas that they could implement in their own classroom morning routines. And it could also, this research could also help schools as a whole see ideas to have like a uniform structure of morning routines to help promote that positive energy in the morning. And then in the field of education, it shows teachers the value in teacher research in morning routines, and it gives them new ideas because every morning routine I noticed is a little bit different. So these are my final thoughts. That it was my first time conducting research, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. I was so terrified, like anyone in my life, which I feel like most of you know me pretty well in here. I was so nervous about this. And now I know that teacher research is part of our responsibility and it's our duty to do this. We must engage in reflective practice to improve our teaching, which is, like I said, a CAP standard that I really believe in, and that colleagues and other teachers are our best resources. So meeting with my inquiry community here, talking with professors, the teachers I interviewed, other teachers in my school, my mentor teachers, all of them really have helped me build this research and helped me grow as a teacher. And so, the next step on my journey, I'm really excited that I'm teaching kindergarten at Metro West Jewish Day School, and I'm looking forward to creating a new morning routine that's developmentally appropriate to kindergartners, because I'm sure they will not be reading for 20 minutes silently when they come into the room, and I'm really looking forward to this next step.
How old were these kids you were teaching?
3rd grade, so they were 8 and 9. Good question. Yes?
So the three students that you said you know who they are, do you think if you did more, is there any way that you think you could have done morning routine that would have been effective with those three kids? That's a question, I guess.
That's a great question. I think that if I had more time and had started this at the beginning of the year, I would have been able to really give more surveys, look for more student feedback. But because this was done over a few months, it was hard to kind of gauge what would be the most effective. And I think now that I know this, there are adjustments that I would make and possibly like allow them to read together because they were really social, or have them like have a meeting in the hallway and have them work on a project throughout the year. Like, they were all really interested in drawing, and so maybe I could have given them like paper and markers, and like instead of independently reading, they would work in the hallway on creating a book or something. So I think that yes, given more time, I would have adjusted more. Oh, yes.
I have a question about the observations that you did with the three teachers and the interviews. What did, like, maybe one or two things that you got out of those observations?
Okay. So from the observations, these teachers that I know all of these teachers very well personally, and so I knew that their like mentality and them as teachers had a lot more control over the classroom in the morning. And I've been in those classrooms before and seen like how positive their day starts, like right after their morning routine. And so I witnessed that firsthand, and that helped me really understand how much of a positive impact that these morning routines could have. And I also just learned different ideas from them of things that they've tried in the past. And that was also part of my teacher survey, where they listed their morning routine and I asked them what they would change. And so I found that all of the data throughout was pretty similar. So, thank you.